call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom. Here. Mrs. Spiritu. Here. Ms. Laird. Ms. Lewis. Here. And Mr. Price.
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on October 9th, 2023, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lewis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Bloom. Yes. Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu.
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. Well, there will be no legislative report with Ms. Laird being absent tonight. Any walk-on items?
No, sir.
Walk-on items?
Nope.
Community, there's no one here to address the board, so we'll move on to superintendent's report.
All right, we're going to get right to Ms. Abernathy. As we have known now for a while, we try to have the second meeting of the month be a work session of sorts, so we get a deeper dive into something. This week, it's the Abby Show. So she's picked out a few policies that she believes are kind of crucial in her world, and she deals with quite a bit, and would like to maybe present those to the board. So, Ms. Abby, if you would.
All right, thanks for having me. So the policy I'm bringing to you guys tonight is JEBA, and it's early entrance to kindergarten. It's not a topic that's discussed a great deal, so I thought it would be a good topic to educate you guys and our community on.
Can you guys all hear her? Can you get on that microphone a little bit? Corey, can we hear her out there? Can you hear Abby? Okay, great.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
Okay, I'll start over. So tonight's policy is JEBA, and it's early entrance to kindergarten. It's not a policy that's widely discussed, and so I thought it would be a good policy to bring here to educate you guys on some more and also our community. So every school district is able to select their kindergarten date. And what I mean by that is the date that the student must be 5 in order to attend kindergarten that school year. And ours is August 1st. So if your child is 5 before August 1st, they are able to attend kindergarten. And where we see some questions from parents are like our early August and early September birth dates, that their child is doing very well in preschool. They don't really feel like they'd benefit from another year in preschool, and they'd like them to attend kindergarten. So we have a policy that allows for early entrance examination, and there's some dates within that policy. We have like 45 days to respond and all that good stuff, but we really try to respond pretty quickly because we all know planning to send your child to kindergarten compared to another year of preschool is a big difference in planning. So what we do is a parent will go to their respective elementary school, or they can come to the district office, and we have forms that they'll fill out that apply for early entrance. On that, they'll put their name and the student's name and birth date, but it also gives us permission for our school psychologist to work with them. And our school psychologists will give an assessment to the student and also do an observation and then create a report for us to look at. So, and I'll go over those details in just a little bit. So what each parent does is they take their form and they fill it out, and then they go to their respective elementary school and have the principal sign off on it. And why we do that, it's just another form of communication. So that way our principals know that, hey, I have some kids who are applying for early entrance. I may have some, because there are some steps we need to do for that. So our school psychologists will do a portion of an IQ assessment, because our early entrance is actually linked to our grade acceleration policy, so it could identify them as gifted. So an IQ assessment is what we do, and then we also do an observation, and then we do some sub-tests as well to get a really good read on that student. And what that measures is how well they can learn, and it helps us with that kindergarten readiness. So some of our steps are the parent provides information at register. They go through the assessment, and then it's determined if they are referred for early entrance or if they're not referred. So if they are referred, the parent comes in and fills out their registration information with Danielle, our registration clerk. And once that registration is completed, the principals are notified, And then also our gifted coordinator, Lindsay Felsky, who we work very closely with, she's also notified because they have to have what's called a written education plan or a WEP. And it's kind of the opposite of an IEP when it comes to the skills it addresses. It addresses skills of like where they're at in their, like where their strengths are, and it's going to play off their strengths, and it's going to have some goals on there and how they'll be enriched. Does all that make sense? Okay. It's a different policy than what I'm used to presenting. And we're required to do WEPs or written education plans, and we are required to report them in EMIS just like we would in IEP. So the Ohio Department of Education does keep track of all those, and those are done at least one time a year. So that is if a student is referred for early entrance. Sometimes, though, students are not referred because the threshold we're looking is typically about a 120 IQ. That's a pretty high IQ, right? Anywhere between 90 and 109 is average, and that's where we should be. But because this is grade acceleration, we're really looking for that higher IQ. So at times, parents will appeal the process. You have to have an appeal process for this. So they'll write an appeal, and it'll go to Mr. Detweiler, and he throws it my way, as I'm the designated hearing officer for that as well. And then I have a committee that we get together, and we take a look at exactly where that child's test scores were to determine if it's an appropriate placement for that. So parents have 30 days from the time that they receive their written response from us that says that they did not qualify for early entrance to appeal that. And then we have 30 days again to respond. But again, we know talking those timelines, a lot of times we're already in August when we get to this. So we try to have them turn around within a week. That way parents can do the appropriate planning. The superintendent, though, I will go to him and I'll give the recommendation and all the reasons as to why either way, and then he has that final decision. And that is a final decision. There's no appeal after that. So I mentioned if the student does qualify for the early entrance, then they get put on a written education plan or a WEP. And that plan has 3 different areas that it addresses. It has to specify the placement of the child as an accelerated setting. So it's the exact same thing as if you have a second grader who's accelerated to 3rd grade. This is just being accelerated into kindergarten. There has to be strategies to support the successful early entrance. And we have to have an appropriate transition period for the accelerated students. And we have what's called gifted intervention specialists who work with our students. And I know that Mrs. Hurt has brought information to you guys over the last, 8 years that I've been here with the law changes and the service change that we've done in the district. So we have gifted intervention specialists in every building that oversee and provide some instruction for our kids in certain subject areas as well. So they do a really good job of compliancy and communication with parents. Any questions so far?
I do have one question. So these children who enter kindergarten early are identified then as gifted students. So I know we've talked about the gifted program before and it being a little taboo as far as standards are concerned. So are they identified as gifted forever and ever, or
Well, I don't want
can
to
they hop off the gifted train?
So right now, my understanding is without Mrs. Hurt here, that once identified, always identified. However, parents can opt out. So if you have a child who's identified in 2nd and 3rd grade and they get up into middle school and there's just a lot more stresses and they're saying that that's not a great thing for their child, they can call and say, yeah, we're done.
Okay.
And that's okay too. We do have some parents who do that because they feel like that's what's best for their kiddo.
That's probably more
seems-
typical pathway than let's identify them as not, or they're struggling academically or whatever. That didn't happen. It usually is it's a load, or it's something they don't want to be a part of anymore, and the parents withdraw them. Yeah.
And it would seem that it would make sense for that to be an avenue because we're talking about kindergarten entrance and birthdays. You know what I mean? Not as, you have a 1st or 2nd or 3rd grader either on either end there. So that's good that there's options available.
That's
I
so
guess.
true. And also, I know I have it written in here, but I'll just explain now that parents have an option too, if, their child starts kindergarten and we're about into, September, early October, and that child is really struggling, they have the option to withdraw without penalty. Typically, our early entrance kiddos, we're going to see birthdays within August and September. And many districts in our area also have a September 30th date. So, kind of 6 of one and half dozen the other, right? Like, if they live in another district, they would go and they wouldn't be early entrance. So I think that's really important. We let the parents know that, and there's really good communication. We've only had, usually we have about 5 to 10 parents apply every year, and typically 1 to 3 enter in as early entrants. And since I've been here, I've had one parent say, yeah, he's not ready for the maturity of kindergarten yet. And so she withdrew him back to preschool. So, that does happen, not very often, but typically it's those, August 10th birthdays that we see that they're applying for. And I will say our local preschools know of this policy in all of our school districts in the area, and they'll recommend to parents. Because I've had, moms and dads call me and say, I didn't know this was even an option, but Miss So-and-so, at this preschool said that this would be a really good option for my kiddo to try out. And so they'll do that.
Well, that's good that there's communication with the local preschools in our district. That probably makes it easier for parents who don't know and for our district as well.
Very true, yeah. And we are blessed, that's right.
Sure.
All right, where am I at here? Okay, so I wanted to revisit the evaluation information. So our school psychologists, we have 4 school psychologists, and they are all just very wonderful. A lot of times they are the first interaction that parents have with our school district, because they might be trying to early entrance their oldest child, and they don't know anyone else in the district. And so what we do is a parent will fill out the application. We have 45 days to conduct the evaluation. And what we typically do is when they come in the late spring, we'll have them come in over the summer, and we'll do evaluation then. So we try to make it just as close as we can without violating that date, so that they can be the oldest they can be for that evaluation. And so they get to come in. It's a 1-to-1 setting, and it's always a lot of fun to have little ones, because they're very tiny at this age, come in. And we give what's called the Weschler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence. And that test has 6 subtests within it. We're looking for those scores between 90 and 109. And we're looking at that superior cognitive ability at 120, just due to the acceleration. And they also, our school psychs will provide an observation for our kiddos too, and they'll write that up. And that helps too with our decision, especially on the appeal, of how did they present during testing? Did they follow directions? Did they willingly separate from their mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, whoever brings them in? Those are all really important bits of information, because if there's struggle there, one might assume there could be struggle within that kindergarten setting. I will say most of our kids, though, take off and have a great time.
Could I ask a question really quick?
Sure.
This assessment tool, is that something that the district selected as an assessment tool, or is this something that is state mandated as an assessment tool that would carry on through other districts as well?
This is an approved assessment that we can use. So every district has their own policy. When we rewrote our early entrance policy, which is one reason why I'm bringing it, because it was very, very short. I mean, it was like 2 or 3 paragraphs, and now you'll see it's multiple pages because there were some law changes. So working with Lindsay Felsky from North Central Ohio ESC, she's our gifted coordinator, and she is just superb. She recommended that we, have this policy with the appropriate steps. We've always done this, it's just not been written out in policy. And so that appeal process has always been a little bit looser, and we just want to make sure it's fair for everyone. So thank you for that.
Abby, wouldn't there be a couple options too for testing the
Oh, yeah.
state? So that's the
Yeah.
one we've chosen, but there are other tools that are approved on the list.
And we have a school psychologist, her name is Kelsey Taylor, and she primarily does preschool. And she likes this test because it's geared and normed for kids this age. So it's not I wouldn't say it's not school-aged assessment, but we have other IQ assessments that we give our kiddos. Like you'll see this one's the preschool and primary scale. This is used up until about age 5. And our kids coming in aren't quite age 5 yet. So it's a very appropriate assessment to give them.
Good.
And it's not just sit down and paper pencil. You know, I can't really show you protocol because I'm not credentialed to do so, but it's, you know, it's a block design. She'll show them blocks and then they have to build the blocks that look like the picture. And then she'll tell them some colors in order, or she'll show them some, you know, shapes with colors and they have to tell her the colors of the shapes back. There's some coloring to it, so there's a little bit of everything with it. And that's why she likes it, because it's a measure of the whole child and not, you know, it's not like they're doing math problems trying to, you know, get that score. So if the student's enrolled in kindergarten as an early entrance, we take, you know, we continuously monitor that child. So like I said, they use their written education plans to do so. Typically, like I said, though, we have about 1 to 3 who enter and they do very well in school. I have not tracked the kiddos in the years I've been here to determine if, you know, they're in advanced classes or not, because they would be probably in about middle school by now. But like I said, we've only had 1 student who the parent chose to put him back in preschool, and that's been about 5 years ago. So, right. Any questions or clarifications you guys might need from me on this?
My granddaughter actually was early enrolled
Okay.
last year. She's in 1st grade this year. She's doing great. She's reading stuff. She's, I don't know, you should see her. She teaches her brother. He's in preschool.
That's so great to hear. I love it.
So yeah, she's doing really good with it.
Good. Like I said, it's just a policy we don't really discuss a great deal. It's a pretty important policy that we have. So,
I think it's important for the public to hear that as well. We don't know what we don't know, so just putting information out, it's a good thing.
My daughter decided to do it because they went to Sacred Heart, and the preschool teacher said her birthday is at the end of August, and they said she could go into kindergarten and be just fine.
yep. Miss Lisa from Sacred Heart, and then Miss Roberta over at Rainbow Station. I would hear those names quite a bit.
Yeah, it would have been a waste of time to put her back in preschool.
And that also, that information, when they share that with us, we'll jot down in our notes, just because, again, if they don't meet that 120 number that we're looking for, which is a really hard number to meet, then that's information that's really relevant for Mr. Detweiler to make that final decision. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
Kind of wraps that up. Anything else on that, or anything else for Ms. Abernathy? And I'll have to say, she's fabulous. What she does makes my job pretty easy. And it's nice to have the real facts in front of you, too, to really know what, you know, is the best thing for the child. Because sometimes it's just not appropriate. And, you know, we're about the kid's long-term success, and so we try to make the best decision possible. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's not just a decision based on, you know, just one thing. Like you said, it's a pretty dynamic assessment of the child with a standardized assessment tool, as well as observation of the child. So that's good.
good stuff. Okay. I got a few more things, Mr. Price, if I may.
Yep.
All right. First of all, good luck tonight to the volleyball girls. They play the second game at Hopewell Loudon against Perrysburg, right? Perrysburg. So wish them, we faced them in the regular season and won, right? So here we go, girls. Wish them well. The boys qualified for the playoffs this Friday. They'll be at Avon Lake, so we'll see how things go for them. We wish them well also. Kind of big in our world right now is the Department of Education and Workforce. The governor had, if you remember this summer, his budget moved, well, kind of dissolved most of the role of the Department of Education and created a new department called Department of Education and Workforce, which would be a cabinet position inside the governor's office. A couple weeks ago, a few members of the current Board of Education sued and had a restraining order to not proceed. They won for a couple weeks, and as of Friday, another judge has overturned that stay. So as of this morning, that Department of Education and Workforce is rolling. So that's just kind of the latest. There'll still be probably some legal challenges going down the road. I just anticipate that. there's two things. One is a constitutional question. Is it constitutional to take the authority away from that body? And the other was the one issue, one item issue from the budget. Like, they're only allowed to pass one item that has to do with one thing, and you can't just throw other things on it. So those are the two challenges legally that they're trying. But I think it's got some real good potential, but also, like all things legislative, there might be some issues. So we'll wait and see. So that's the latest with the Department of Education and Workforce. So the governor did, I can't remember her name, I heard it this morning. There's an interim director of that department, and he'll be looking for a long-term fill for that. So we're all kind of watching, see how that goes. I had a chance to hear a presentation from one of the higher-ups from the Department of Ed this morning, and he said they're all still doing their job. So the whole Department of Education, the part that moved into the governor's office, are still doing basically what they've always done, and which I think is wise. You can't just disrupt an entire process. You know, there's money flow, there's curriculum choices, there's all kinds of things still happening down there. So it looks like so far so good has moved into the governor's office, and as soon as he has, like, as head person and two directors, then I think we'll start seeing some influence from the governor's office into those departments. But so far so good, and we'll see how it goes. So just want to kind of keep you up to date on that. All right, I think that's all I had for my report. Mr. Price, if your permission, I'll continue on.
Yep.
All right, very good. Always a big thing, the donations. We've got a great list tonight. The class of 59 gave $600 to Fremont Ross after their tour. They were very complimentary of their tour. Mr. Cahill gave them the big show, and they were very gracious and gave that to Ross to use for the PBIS, which is our positive behavior reward system. Cookie Lady, thank you very much to the Cookie Lady. Always grateful for a delicious cookie. Mary Beth Hammond for some reward coupons. Tonya Harris for gift cards. That's for the ACE mentoring. The Kiwanis Club donated some books to our elementaries. Moonshine Entertainment, some reward coupons. Emma Sam, a bass guitar for our music department. Sandusky County retired teachers always are good for some books. Taco Bell, some rewards for Fremont Ross. And Walmart, some candy for Krogan Elementary.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve item 1, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lewis. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Abstain. Motion's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Moving on to item 2, this is what I mentioned last week. This is the CMR agreement for Gilbane to move forward on our visiting bleacher project. So with your approval tonight, we'll kind of continue that process. They are actually getting ready to roll. We hope to start getting the old bleachers out next week. And just so you know, they're going to go a very short distance up to the fairgrounds and be at the racetrack and the fairgrounds. So we find a second home. But also, so you know, we will have them sign a release of liability. We did that with another set of bleachers a few years ago. We have the same legal language so that we know when we give those away, we're out, right? So there's no way for that to come back. We also don't, or hope, though, that they can still be used by the community and you know, maintained safely and so forth. So just so you kind of know what the pathway is for the old sets. So with your approval this evening, we'll let Gilbane continue managing that project.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item 2, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lewis. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Moving on for our policies, these are all second readings from our most recent policy meeting for your approval this evening.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve items 3 through 6, please?
So moved.
I missed who said that. Sorry.
Huh?
Miss.
Sorry.
Was that okay? No, I didn't see. I was looking down and through the mics. It's hard to. All your voices sometimes sound the same. So. Motion by Mrs. Spiritu. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you very much. Moving on, starting with item 7 is the beginning of our staff motions this evening. First, we have 2 resignations, Kimberly Humphrey as a bus driver and Carol Schaefer as a cook. Item 8, we have Crystal Dime, Rebecca Fahey as certified staff substitutes. Cook Kendra Provard will be here at the middle school with your approval. And then a few classified substitutes there, Shante Flores, Angela Huss, and Allison Salisbury. Item 9 are some supplemental contracts as we continue to fill our supplemental positions. Gabriel Grant, Nicholas Hoffman, and Cassandra Tucker will be filling those positions. Item 10 continues our supplemental positions. The next one is about a third of the way down there. You see Gina Hoppus Heinlein for a food service family liaison and Mark Larrick for a bowling coach. Item 11, teacher mentor Jennifer Baer with your approval. Item 12, another special event worker, Tamara Myers, as a bus chaperone volunteer. Item 13 is special event worker, Bella Stout, who is a student. With your approval, will be able to help us. And our last in this section is item 14, status change for Alexander Kressel and Tricia Gaybauer.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve items 7 through 14, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Bloom. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. All right, moving on to report of the treasurer.
Good evening. I don't know what's going on anymore. You'll all be shocked. I'm going to try to keep my report a little short tonight. I'm struggling with some sinus issues, so I can't really tell how loud my voice is, and I'm really trying to
Stop
watch.
screaming at us.
Okay, like that's what I feel like is that I'm talking super loud all day. But gotta love this time of the year with the crops all coming off and the dust in the air. Tonight on the agenda, I just have 2 items, the financial report from September. Just real quick on that. Overall, it was a good month. Even though we had some decreases in our intake and revenue, we also had some decreases in our overall expenditures, but came out positive in the end. But the one thing I did want to highlight in our expenses where some of the areas are a little higher, just overall, you might over the next year see expenses go up in supplies, salaries, different things like that, because we were really utilizing those ESSER funds and we are coming to the tail end of that. We have to have it all spent down by the end of this year. So just there is going to be some of the things that we used to fully charge off to ESSER is now going to come back to the general fund. So those expenses will probably show up as higher. One of the examples for this month was that SRO payment we used to write off to ESSER, and now it's back in general fund. So trying to think if there's, I think that's all I really was going to report on that. And then item 16 tonight, we have some appropriations, girls basketball, and then the quiz bowl. I believe they want to go on a field trip, I believe. So they're asking for an increase appropriations this year.
Can I get a motion to approve items 15 and 16, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lewis. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Spiritu. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. Moving on to board member communications. Lori.
Thank you for all the donations. I mean, it's always great when they give so the children can, and the kids can have, I don't know, gifts and prizes. And it's awesome to hear that the bleachers are getting a new home and they're not just going off to a landfill or somewhere or scrap heap. All the teachers and the volunteers giving up their time and their extra to give the kids their, I don't know, coaching and things that they need. And good luck to all the teams tonight, the girls. And that's it.
Mary Alice?
I'd like to thank Mrs. Abernathy for her presentation. And like Sarah said, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So I like these presentations that we have because it's helps us to be able to share. But I mean, we have it recorded so the community can go back and listen if somebody's like, hey, I think they mentioned that at a board meeting, and they can go back to watch and get more information. So it's these work sessions are very helpful for us and the community. So I'd like to thank you for that. And of course, always thanking the community for all the donations and all the love that we show and the support that we do for our students. And that's it. That's it for tonight. Thank you.
Sarah?
Just again, congratulations to all of the fall sports teams. It seems really weird that we're talking about tying up the fall sports season already, but here we are. Always congratulations to the Marching Little Giants on another successful marching season. I know that we have a fruit sale in swing. And the music boosters are always looking for people to participate and help with events and just to come up with new ideas to assist the kids. So if that's your tribe and your people, or not, maybe it's not. You might not know that until you go to a meeting and find out. So I think Mr. Beardmore would be the best person. Mark Beardmore would be the best person to contact if you're interested in being a music booster. The ladies volleyball team, we're all really excited about them this evening, and we are cheering them on. The cheerleading squad, the high school cheerleading squad, went to their first NLL competition on this past Saturday, and the varsity earned a second place in their band, dance, and cheer categories. So this is pretty cool because this is their first competition. Like in the other league, they didn't do competitions, and now they do. So this is pretty neat that their first showing, they went out and got a second place. So congratulations to the athletes and the coaches. I think our lone freshman cross-country athlete is going to regionals this weekend, and that is Kennedy Walker. And we have quite a few fall athletes that have earned first and second team NLL recognition. So congratulations to all those student athletes. I also heard this week that our football team has a average GPA of 3.7, which is commendable as well. We love watching our athletes play, but we all have an emphasis on them being student athletes first. So we're really proud of that as well.
Well, special shout out to Alicia Nye, who I think is kind of head of that study table for those athletes, doing a great job with that.
And doing a great job getting information out, not just to the students and assisting them, but also to the community and letting us know how our student athletes are doing. So that's awesome. And then my last little plug for the evening is High School Musical. The musical is coming November 17th through 19th are those dates. And I think ticket sales, I've heard, so don't quote me on this, November 1st.
I'm not sure I know that. Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's right, but if not, I'm just kidding.
Never mind. Right?
But you could use the hometown ticketing app or purchase them online. And if you need help, just contact the high school and somebody would be glad to help you purchase tickets.
Thank you, Abby, for the report tonight. Like other board members have said, it's great to have that information. It's something that, how many times do we talk about early placement for a kindergartner? Not very often. Yeah. So, but great information for us and for the community to have. And like Mary Alice said, you can go back and say, yeah, these are the steps. You can go back to this board meeting and hear it for yourself and everything. So thank you for that. Good luck to the volleyball team tonight. as they're moving on. Good luck to the football team Friday night in their first playoff game. Along with the football team and the study table and what Coach Long has done with that and the 3.7, I think they're awaiting. I had the privilege of helping out with study table with football every Tuesday night. So I got to help Alicia and I didn't do much. She does all the work. It's pretty amazing what she puts together and knows exactly what those kids are doing for grades. But I believe, so they submitted, last year we were awarded an all academic team for the state of Ohio. So they submitted at the end of the week. They have to wait till the end of the regular season or the last week of the regular season of football. So I think they're probably awaiting to hear that, if they're going to be recognized for that. So I did, without getting into it too much, with being able to help, it was pretty amazing what I got to see with the team. And when you talk about a team that's 90 kids and they're able to accomplish that, you know, it's pretty amazing to see how it took place and everything. So last week was our last study table on Tuesday night, and I informed Coach Long and Miss Nye that I would like for them to come and present to us. So one, as a board, we can see the accomplishments of what our teachers and coaches are doing. Not that we don't see that anyway, but at a different level as a student instead of an athlete. But also, again, it's that information where anybody can hear straight from them. Just like tonight, we can hear about early placement for a kindergartner. They can see, you know, what we're doing at our school, because sometimes it's always the bad news that gets publicized instead of all the great news that happens. So that we're going to wait for the academic, all academic team to see if that happens and stuff. Not that that changes the program that they have in place, though. But I think it'd be great to have them come in and speak. Chad was all for it. Alicia doesn't like to perform in public, but I told her, you're coming. Doesn't matter. So, but anyway, so with that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to make a motion for us to move in. Oh, no, there is one other thing, just for everyone here to remember and for the public. We usually have our meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays or Mondays of every month. Next month, our first meeting is going to be November 6th, Monday, November 6th, because the second Monday falls during Capitol Conference, OSBA Capitol Conference down in Columbus for some of us. So, and that meeting will be here at the middle school. However, the PAC is going to be occupied, and so is the gym. So we are going to move back into a classroom pod where we used to do it for that one on November 6th. And then the second meeting of the month will be Monday, November 20th. So a little bit different than what our norm is for a month. So just to put that out there for everybody. But with that, then I'd like to make a motion for us to move into executive session under item H. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Espiritu. Any discussion? The only thing I would say is just for the public to know, there will be no business conducted after our executive session. We'll come out of executive session and we'll adjourn immediately, so there isn't any other further business going on. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Spiritu,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Motion's approved. We are moving into executive session.